I would have never thought, calligraphy would have taken me this far. I would do tours around the US. I'm doing live calligraphy events. I would get flown out to different cities and be in hotels. I felt like almost like a rock star. I would never have believed from that first time me picking up a calligraphy book to where this would lead me. Yeah, I would not even believe it if you told me that this is what's gonna happen. I was like, yeah, no way. My name's Simon. I'm the person behind the Brooklyn Scribe. The funny thing is that my parents named me and my two older brothers all Muhammad Hussein, but they never called us Muhammad a single day of our lives. In the Bangladeshi community, there's this thing called Daknam. A Daknam is like a nickname, and my mom gave me my Daknam of Simon, and that's how I introduced myself. As a kid, like, when I came to America, they'd be like, what's your name? It's like, my name is like Simon, and they're like, oh, Simon. I was like, yeah, I do like Simon, and that's how I got my name, Simon. But yeah. I had like a classic Bangladeshi immigrant start. I have two older brothers and a younger sister, so a family of 6. We first stayed in a 1-bedroom apartment.
আমেরিকা তো প্রথম আসছি যে একটু মানে কিরকম জানি লাগছে বাংলাদেশের থেকে এখানে আসছি। আমিও তো চাইছি একজন হোক ডাক্তার, একজন হোক ইঞ্জিনিয়ার, একজন লয়ার হোক, এরভাবে চাইছি। কিন্তু চাইছি তারপরেও আমার কথা হয়েছে তোমরা যেটা করতে চাও, তোমরা যেটার উপরে ভালো মনে করো ওইটাও হও তোমাদের।
তাহলে কি এত ইম্পর্টেন্ট ছিল যে আমরা ডাক্তার, ইঞ্জিনিয়ার, লয়ার হই?
এমনি মন চাইছিল একটু,
মন চাইছিল
মানে মন চাইছে একটা ছেলে ডাক্তার হোক, এরকম ভাবে মন চাইছে একটা ছেলে ইঞ্জিনিয়ার হোক, এরকম মন চাইছে একটা কিছু হোক, ওরা একজন একটা কিছু হোক, এটা মন চাইছে।
I would say later on as a kid I was pretty rebellious, like in a certain way. I just didn't see everything through the lens of course, someone who lives in Bangladesh. Like I grew up in Brooklyn. Like I've been exposed to many cultures, many ideas, and I would say that caused me to, I guess most teenagers, like when your parents say, you can't go hang out with your friends or something, you're gonna find ways to hang out. So definitely maybe a bit more rebellious, and especially once I got into skateboarding, that's like when the rebellious side came out. I was doing that earlier, but I'm like, yo, let me. My parents hated skateboarding. You know, they definitely saw it as something like very dangerous, and they're just like, you know, they're also not used to anyone else, any Bengali person skateboarding either. Like I only know one other Bengali person who skateboards, but there aren't much Bengali skateboarders.
ভয় লাগতো সারাক্ষণ কি ব্যথা পাইবে করি, এটা নিয়ে আমার অনেক টেনশন লাগছিল, আমার অনেক টেনশন হইতো এই জিনিস।
এটা একটা রিক্স, আমিও ভাবছি এটা একটা রিক্স, কারণ আমি টিভিতে দেখতাম যারা স্কেটবোর্ড খেলা এরা র্যামের থেকে জাম দেয়, অনেক দোতলার থেকে জাম দেয়, তারপর অনেকে পা ভাঙ্গিয়েলা, হাত ভাঙ্গিয়েলা, মাথা নষ্ট করিয়েলা। এর পরে দেখছি একটা কাঁঠার মতন একটা জিনিস আছে, ওইখানে পড়ি একটা ছেলের হাতটা নষ্ট হয়ে গেছে, মারা গেছে। এই জন্য আমি ওইটার জন্য আমি একটা তোমাকে সাপোর্ট করি নিই এইটি খেলা। তারপর আমি বলছি যতটুকু পারো নর্মালি থাকো, কোনো রিক্সের কোনো কিছু যাইও না।
A perfect Bengali son is like very studious, you know, stays at home, you know, reads a lot. I mean, just someone who's doing his homework all the time, you know. I guess like yeah, growing up, like my parents definitely pushed me into wanting to be like a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. Like those are the types of career paths that they really pushed. And I remember growing up, especially when it came to like report cards and things like that, my parents were very strict about it. It would be like all the moms would almost be like comparing us to like other kids, you know. It would be like, oh, you know, parents would try to one up like other parents. You'd be like, hey, you know, my kid's better, you know, like he got like a 95 or like a 98, you know, and like, you know, how about your son? You know, they would always try to find out about like, oh, this is what my son got, like, what about you? Or, you know, that kind of behavior I've noticed early on. Like I knew I was a little more different in terms of like having different interests. So definitely felt a little bit like of an outcast in the community. You know, when you're in like high school, I was like a junior, senior at the time. And you know, you almost gotta have like an idea, almost like you're supposed to have an idea of what you wanted to do for a living, and like, you know, what you want to pursue in college, and like what you want to be when you grow up. And to be honest, I didn't really have an idea. Like, I was just still not sure, and I was just really trying to think about it at the time, and you know, reflect on, you know, what I really wanted to do. Someone who I grew up in the neighborhood, his name was Omar. He was someone who also skateboarded. He was like an amateur, he had like an amateur sponsorship. So, you know, he's someone who I really looked up to. he was like playing guitars, and he was like a real like creative person. He was in a band, and he would create videos as well, and those were some of his side projects. And you know, seeing him do something creative is what really got the spark going inside me, because I'm like, you know, this is someone who's working on like these art projects, and he's working on these films, and you know, he's able to generate money from this. So you know, why can't I do the same? It also just really got me to really think about like, what are other creative fields that I can potentially get into. With skateboarding came a lot of art, like, so the graphics was always there, and design, and you know, I was thinking about, you know, should I do maybe graphic design at that point? It was like when I was like 16, 17, there was free classes for high school kids at Pratt Institute. I took a lot of drawing classes and design classes that were like free, and it was just amazing. And that's when I started to really dive deep, get really absorbed into the arts.
আর্টের ব্যাপারে আমি একটু বেশি আগ্রহ ছিলাম না, কারণ আমি বার্ড ইউনিভার্সিটির এক প্রফেসরের কাজের করা জিজ্ঞাসা করলাম। সে আমাকে বললে যে তাকে বুঝাও, হাঁটুর উপরে পড়লে ভালো জব পাওয়া যায় না, কাজ পাওয়া যায় না। দেখো আমি এখানে চাকরি করি, আমি কি বেতন পাই তোমাকে অনেস্টলি বলবো।
When I first told my parents I wanted to do something in the creative industry, like be a designer, be an artist, they were not having it at that point. It was a very hard conversation to have, because it was like, you know, why would you do this? You won't make any money. You know, you're gonna struggle. I think it was like my older brother at that time was telling my parents like, he's not gonna make enough money for rice or something. It was like, oh, he's not gonna have money for rice, you know? I could feel like my dad or like someone else would be like, hey, you know, I didn't have these opportunities, but now you have this opportunity, and you have to do it all. You know, you have to be the most successful person. You have to be the most Bangladeshi. There are like these certain things that you have to be, or else, you know, we're not successful, or like I didn't succeed as a parent. So I feel like there was definitely a lot of pressure. Sewing, quilting, and arts in the fabric, and even with like calligraphy, Like that's deeply rooted in my blood. Like it's not later on till I went to Bangladesh as an adult, I realized that all the CNGs and the rickshaws and all the signs, they're really hand painted. All of it is hand painted. So calligraphy and signage had a huge influence in Bangladesh. So, you know, and in terms of music and dance, it was actually a very rich culture in the arts. It's just growing up in not the best financial situation had a big influence in, you know, what me and my, you know, siblings were doing.
জব নিয়ে একটু চিন্তা লাগছিল যে তুমি তাহলে তো ভালো টাকা বাড়াইতে পারবে না আম্মু, এই জন্য আমার কাছে মানে চিন্তা লাগছে এই জন্য।
I was looking on Craigslist one day. A marketing company was looking for a calligrapher to do Macallan Scotch calligraphy events for Father's Day. I replied to the Craigslist ad. I showed them a picture of my calligraphy. They really liked my calligraphy a lot, and they were essentially like, "Yeah, we want you." And I was like, "Awesome!" You know, it was just like a short event, but I was like, "Oh wow, you know what? Made a little money with my calligraphy." You know, it was like I don't know, like $100 or something at that point. But yeah, I was like, "Oh wow, this, you know, I made a little money with calligraphy." So at that point, you know, I thought it was everything. And then that marketing agency reached out to me again, and they were like, "Hey, would you be able to engrave on the bottles, like etch calligraphy onto the actual bottles and not do like calligraphy on paper?" I was like, "Hey, you know what? I never did it before, but you know, I'm fairly certain that, you know, I can do it because, you know, I have that calligraphy background. I can definitely do it." I was trying to think about all these different types of ways I can incorporate to make money with my craft. When I did calligraphy, something clicked in my head, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, like this makes sense. You know, you can engrave calligraphy into the inside of rings, or you could do signet rings, and you could do pendants, and you could do like, you know, luxury items, and you know, you could do wedding invitations and marriage certificates. Like all these things like really opened up to me later on. My parents now, like they're very proud of my craft. They really love calligraphy a lot. They love my calligraphy. It's just seeing the amount of like dedication that I do for this craft. Like they see me traveling around the United States and even going to Europe to take engraving classes. So they see all the work I'm doing, and you know, they see me just working constantly, and just very happy with that I'm pursuing something wholeheartedly and with a lot of passion.
আগের সময় তো এখন আরো অনেক ভালো লাগে। প্রথমে আর একটু কম লাগছে, এখন ওরকম লাগে না।
আর্ট তো ভালো জিনিস, আর্ট দেওয়া অনেক কিছু মানুষকে বোঝানো যায়, সব কিছু করা যায়। একটা আর্ট দেখিতে মানুষ মুখে বলে না, আর্ট দেখলে বোঝা যায় তার ভিউ সব কিছু। আর্ট খারাপ জিনিস না, আর্ট তো ভালো জিনিস। প্রতিটি জিনিসের ভালো আছে এবং খারাপ আছে, চেষ্টা করবে অল দ্য টাইম ভালো সাইডটা।
In the beginning, I had no clue how this was gonna, you know, lead to my livelihood. I knew it felt really good to do calligraphy, and I know something I was very proud of, and it's just something that like I really enjoyed. So I didn't think about at that time how practicing or doing calligraphy would lead me to a, like, let's say like a job. I did not know at that time. You do it for 25 years and after that you're like, yeah, I'm done. But there's no retiring as like a calligrapher, engraver, you know? I don't think, you know, one day you get up, you're like, oh, you know, I'm going to retirement, you know, no more engraving, you know? I think as long as you have the capabilities with your hand and you're healthy enough to do it, like, you know, you're gonna die with the graver in your hand or with the pen in your hand, and you know, you're gonna just, you know, you're gonna do it till the day you die. There is no retiring from that.